Here's a secret about every confident-looking person you've ever envied. They don't know either. The founder doesn't know if the company survives next year. The couple at the altar doesn't know. The expert forecasting on television doesn't know. The tracking studies on expert predictions are famously humbling. Your parents didn't know the whole time. They were improvising like theirs before them. Every single human being currently walking this planet is doing something genuinely astonishing when you stop to see it. Building lives, making promises, planting things that take decades, on a road where nobody anywhere can see past the next bend. The difference between people was never that some know and some don't. Nobody knows. The difference is what the not knowing does to them. For some, it's a low-grade emergency that never ends, the endless forecasting, the paralysis before every uncertain door, the white-knuckled need to be sure before moving. For others, the ones who seem strangely free, the same fog is just weather, acknowledged, worn lightly, walked into daily. Tonight is about crossing from the first group to the second, about making peace with not knowing, because that peace, it turns out, isn't resignation. It's the price of admission to everything good. Start with why uncertainty hurts, because the pain is real and it's built in. Your brain is, at its core, a prediction machine. Its deepest job is anticipating what happens next, and it treats unpredictability itself as a threat. The research here is striking. Studies have found that people experience certain bad outcomes as less stressful than uncertain ones. Subjects awaiting a possible electric shock showed more stress when the shock was maybe coming than when it was definitely coming. Read that again. Your nervous system would rather have guaranteed pain than an open question. That's the machinery you've inherited, and in a dangerous ancient world it served. Treat every Russell as a predator, survive more Russells. But run that same machinery in a modern life and watch what it does. It demands certainty as a precondition for action, certainty the world has never once offered, and while it waits, it fills every open question with worst-case renderings, because to the threat system, an unfilled blank is intolerable and a catastrophe is at least specific. The suffering you experience around the unknown is mostly not the unknown. It's the machinery's refusal to leave a blank blank. Now look at what the demand for certainty actually costs, because it's one of the most expensive habits a person can carry. Every meaningful move in a human life, the career change, the marriage, the child, the business, the book, the move, the honest conversation, shares one non-negotiable feature. Its outcome cannot be known in advance. Not managed into knowability, not researched into guarantee, structurally unknowable, because it depends on futures and other people and 1,000 rolling dice. Which means the person who requires certainty before acting hasn't chosen safety. They've chosen paralysis with a safety-shaped label, a life sentenced to the small set of actions whose outcomes are already predictable, which is precisely the set that changes nothing. And the researcher who spent her career studying vulnerability found exactly this at the center of it all. The definition of vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, and every good thing on the human menu, love, creativity, belonging, growth, requires it as the entry fee. Demand certainty, and you haven't protected yourself from loss. You've pre-lost everything worth having, quietly in advance, the only difference being that nobody calls it loss when it comes disguised as prudence. Here's the reframe that starts the piece. You have been surviving uncertainty masterfully your entire life. Run the actual audit. You didn't know how school would go, how the friendship would turn out, whether the job would work, what any year would bring, and yet here you are. Every crisis to date handled, every unforeseen turn navigated, 100% survival rate against the unknown so far, using resources you mostly couldn't have predicted needing. Notice what that record means. Your security was never actually coming from knowing the future. You never once knew it. It was coming the whole time from your capacity to respond to whatever arrived. And that changes the entire project. The anxious mind seeks safety in better forecasts, an unwinnable game against an unknowable future. The settled mind seeks safety in a different place entirely, Not, I know what's coming, but whatever comes, I handle things I always have. Confidence was never certainty about events. It's certainty about your relationship to events. And unlike the future, that confidence can actually be built. It's built of every uncertain thing you've already crossed, sitting right there in your own history, waiting to be counted. So here's the practice, how peace with not knowing is actually made. First, separate the two zones ruthlessly. It's the oldest move in practical philosophy and still the strongest. In any uncertain situation, some things are yours: your preparation, your effort, your response, your next step. Everything else, outcomes, timing, other people's choices, the economy, the diagnosis, the verdict, is not. The ancients built an entire school on this single sorting operation, and its power is undiminished. Anxiety lives almost exclusively in the second zone, rehearsing what cannot be controlled. Agency lives entirely in the first. When the fog closes in, ask the sorting question: what part of this is actually mine? Do that part fully and practice releasing the rest out loud if needed. That part isn't mine to know. It won't feel natural at first. It becomes, with repetition, the most load-bearing sentence you own. Second, act before certainty, deliberately in small doses as training. Since certainty never precedes meaningful action, the capacity you actually need is tolerance for moving while unsure, and tolerance is built like every tolerance, exposure gradually increased. Make the decision with 80% of the information you want. Commit to the plan knowing it will change. Start the project whose ending you can't see. Say the honest thing without prescripting the response. Each rep teaches the nervous system the lesson forecasting never can. Unsure motion is survivable, and the fog thins as you walk, never before. Waiting for the fog to lift first is the one strategy guaranteed to keep you standing at the trailhead forever, because the fog only lifts behind you. Third, turn forecasting into preparation. There's a legitimate use for future-facing thought, and the anxious have it inverted. Worry runs scenarios to feel the danger. Preparation runs them to build the response. Same imagined storm, opposite output. So when the mind insists on visiting the future, give it the builder's assignment. If that happened, what would I actually do first? Sketch the response 2 or 3 moves deep on paper, then close the file. You'll notice the strangest thing. A sketched response drains the scenario's menace almost completely, because the threat system's real complaint was never "this might happen." It was, and we have no plan. Give it the plan. Then come back, because the future was never your address. And fourth, reclaim the other half of not knowing, because uncertainty has a face nobody puts on the warning labels. It's also where everything good comes from. Every surprise that ever delighted you lived in the fog. The person you love, unforeseeable, the day before you met them. The best turns of your life, track them back, and almost none were on any plan you drafted. They walked in through the exact openness you've been trying to seal shut. A fully known future, sit with this, would be a prison with excellent visibility. Nothing to discover, nothing to become, every day a rerun you've already watched. The blank page that terrifies the anxious mind is the same blank page on which anything can still be written. That's not a consolation prize. That's the actual gift, and the people at peace with not knowing are simply the ones who have stopped reading the openness as pure threat and started reading it as what it always equally was: room. Room for better than you predicted. It happens. It has happened to you. The fog delivers both ways. So tonight, take the question that's been keeping you up, the outcome you can't know, the bend you can't see past, and give it the whole practice. Sort what's yours and do that part. Sketch the response to the feared version once and file it. Then deliberately take one real step forward unsure. Not because the fog lifted. Because you finally remembered your record in fog, undefeated. Nobody knows. Nobody has ever known. The whole beautiful human procession, every builder, every parent, every love story in history, walked the same unlit road yours is on, seeing exactly as far as you can see, one step. That was always enough. It's enough tonight. Step.